Hook, hey friend, imagine this, it's late at night, the city lights of Seattle flicker outside the glass walls of your sleek corner office, and your no-nonsense CEO, the woman everyone fears and admires, leans across her desk and asks you point-blank, Michael, what's stopping you from dating? Your heart pounds because the truth you've buried for 5 long years is about to spill out, and when it does, her eyes fill with tears that have nothing to do with your story alone. If you've ever loved someone so deeply that losing them felt like losing half your soul, or if you've ever built walls so high you forgot what sunlight felt like on your skin, stay with me until the very last word. Because this isn't just a story about heartbreak, it's about the quiet courage it takes to let someone in again. Grab a tissue, settle in, and let's begin. Michael Harper had always been the kind of man who showed up early, stayed late, and never let the world see the cracks in his armor. At 38, he was the senior financial analyst everyone relied on at Whitmore Dynamics, the fast-growing tech firm that had taken Seattle by storm. Colleagues whispered that he was married to his spreadsheets, quiet, reliable, never joining the happy hour crowd or posting vacation photos. They didn't know the real reason. 5 years earlier, on a rainy Tuesday that still replayed in his dreams like a broken record, Michael had kissed his wife Hannah goodbye before she headed out for her morning shift at the children's hospital. She was a pediatric nurse with a laugh that could light up the darkest room, the kind of woman who remembered every patient's favorite color and snuck extra stickers into their charts. They had been high school sweethearts, married at 23, planning a future full of backyard barbecues and tiny feet running across hardwood floors. That afternoon, a distracted driver ran a red light. Hannah never made it home. In the months that followed, Michael learned the true weight of silence. He sold their little house in Ballard because every corner echoed with her voice. He moved into a sterile downtown apartment where the only photos he allowed himself to keep were tucked inside a worn leather journal he never opened in front of anyone. Work became his sanctuary, and his prison. Numbers didn't ask questions. Spreadsheets didn't expect him to smile when his chest felt hollow. He threw himself into every project, earned every promotion, until one day the CEO herself, Rachel Whitmore, started noticing the man who never missed a deadline yet never seemed fully present. Rachel was everything Michael was not, sharp-tongued, fiercely ambitious, and outwardly unbreakable. At 42, she had built Whitmore Dynamics from a garage startup into a multi-million-dollar powerhouse. Her dark hair was always pulled into a perfect chignon, her designer suits armor against a world that had once tried to break her. Only a handful of people knew about the divorce 3 years ago that had left her quietly shattered. Her ex-husband had walked away for someone younger, someone easier, and Rachel had responded by working harder, smiling brighter, and locking her heart away where no one could reach it again. It happened on a Thursday night in late October. The office was nearly empty, rain drumming against the floor-to-ceiling windows like impatient fingers. Michael had stayed to finish the quarterly forecast Rachel needed for the board meeting the next morning. When he knocked on her door at 9:17 p.m., she looked up from her laptop with tired but kind eyes. "Michael, you're still here? Come in, sit. This can wait 5 minutes." He hesitated, but something in her voice, gentler than usual, made him step inside. She poured 2 cups of coffee from the machine she kept for nights like these, slid one across the desk, and studied him the way she studied balance sheets, carefully, missing nothing. "You know," she said softly, "I've watched you for 3 years now. You're the best analyst I've ever had. But you're alone. And I don't mean single. I mean alone in here." She tapped her chest. "So tell me, Michael, what's stopping you from dating?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Michael felt the air leave his lungs. For a moment he considered the safe answer, the one about being too busy, too focused on his career. But something in Rachel's steady gaze cracked the dam he had built so carefully. He set the coffee down, hands trembling just slightly, and began to speak. "Her name was Hannah," he said, voice rough with disuse. "We were supposed to grow old together. She used to steal my hoodies and dance in the kitchen while the pancakes burned. The day she died, I was the one who identified her at the morgue. I still see her face every time I close my eyes. Dating? How do I even begin to explain to someone new that my heart is still half buried with the only woman who ever really knew me? How do I risk loving again when loving once already destroyed me? Tears welled in Rachel's eyes before she could stop them. She turned away quickly, but not before Michael saw the way her shoulders curved inward, as if his words had struck a wound she thought had healed. For the first time in years, the unflappable CEO looked small. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't have asked. I thought maybe if I pushed a little, you'd see there's still life out there. But hearing you say it, it reminded me of my own empty house. My own nights wondering if I'll ever trust anyone again." She laughed, but it broke in the middle. "Look at us. Two successful people who've mastered everything except how to be happy." Michael wanted to reach across the desk, to tell her she wasn't alone in her loneliness, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he stood, murmured goodnight, and walked out into the rain, leaving Rachel staring at the door with tears she hadn't allowed herself in years. That night, Michael didn't sleep. He pulled out the leather journal for the first time since the funeral and read every entry Hannah had written in the margins, little notes about grocery lists, inside jokes, dreams for their future. The ache felt fresh, raw, but something else stirred too, a tiny, terrifying flicker of possibility. Because for the first time, when he thought about opening his heart, he didn't only see Hannah's face. He saw Rachel's eyes filling with tears that mirrored his own pain. The days that followed were laced with a strange new tension. At the office, Rachel kept their interactions professional, polite emails, brief nods in the hallway, but Michael noticed the way her gaze lingered a second longer when she thought he wasn't looking. She stopped scheduling late meetings with him, as if afraid another honest conversation might crack them both open completely. Colleagues whispered that the CEO seemed distracted, less sharp in boardrooms, more likely to stare out the window during presentations. Michael threw himself into work even harder, but the numbers blurred. Every spreadsheet reminded him of the life he was still measuring against a ghost. On the third sleepless night, he found himself driving past the old house in Ballard. The new owners had painted the door bright yellow, Hannah's favorite color. He sat in his car for 20 minutes, tears streaming down his face, whispering to the empty street, "I miss you every single day. But I think I'm allowed to miss you and still want to live." The breakthrough came 2 weeks later, on a quiet Friday afternoon. The office was emptying for the weekend when Rachel appeared at Michael's cubicle, coat already on, holding 2 takeout cups from the cafe downstairs. "I owe you an apology," she said without preamble. "And maybe a conversation that isn't behind a desk. Walk with me?" They ended up on the waterfront, wind whipping off Elliott Bay, seagulls crying overhead. Rachel spoke first, voice steady but soft. "When my marriage ended, I told myself I was better off alone. Stronger. Independent. But the truth is, I was terrified. Terrified of being left again. Your answer that night, it wasn't just your story, Michael. It was mine too. I realized I've been hiding behind this CEO title the same way you've been hiding behind your grief. We both lost something precious. But losing doesn't mean we have to stop living." Michael stopped walking, turned to face her. The sunset painted the sky in Hannah's favorite colors, pinks and golds, and for once the sight didn't feel like a knife. It felt like permission. "I loved her with everything I had," he said. "And part of me always will. But lately I've been wondering, maybe honoring her doesn't mean staying stuck in the past. Maybe it means carrying her love forward into whatever comes next. I'm scared, Rachel. Scared I'll mess it up. Scared I'll hurt someone the way I've been hurting. But I'm more scared of waking up at 70 still wondering what if." Rachel's hand found his, tentative at first, then sure. Her fingers were warm despite the November chill. "Then let's be scared together," she whispered. "No pressure. No expectations. Just, 2 people who understand how heavy the past can feel, learning how to set it down one day at a time." They didn't kiss that day. They didn't need to. What they shared on that windswept pier was deeper, a promise that healing wasn't about forgetting, but about making room. Room for laughter again. Room for late-night talks that weren't about work. Room for a future that didn't erase the past but built gently upon it. Months later, the office noticed the change. Michael started leaving at 5 sometimes. Rachel's calendar had mysterious, personal blocks on Friday evenings. They never made their budding connection public, but the quiet smiles they shared in the elevator told their own story. Michael still visited Hannah's grave every year on her birthday, leaving fresh flowers and whispering updates about his life. And every time, he felt her presence, not as a weight, but as a gentle nudge forward. Rachel, too, began opening the boxes she'd kept sealed since her divorce. Old photos, love letters, pieces of herself she thought were gone forever. Together, they learned that second chances don't cancel out first loves, they honor them by proving the heart is bigger than any single loss. And so, dear friend, if you're still watching, still listening, here is the truth this story wants you to carry: the walls we build to protect ourselves can become the very things keeping joy out. Grief is love with nowhere left to go, but love never truly dies. It simply waits for us to find new places to pour it. Whether you've lost someone, lost yourself, or lost hope that you'll ever feel whole again, remember Michael and Rachel. Remember that one honest question, one vulnerable answer, can be the crack that lets the light back in. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to love again. And somewhere out there, someone might be waiting, heartbroken in their own quiet way, hoping you'll be brave enough to let them in. The end isn't a fairy tale. It's better. It's real. It's yours, whenever you're ready to begin. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story touched something in you, pass it on. Because every broken heart deserves to know it can still beat beautifully.